States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call roll.
Yes.
Perry.
Yeah, here.
Braverman.
Here.
Charnas.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Bilski.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I have a motion to approve the council meeting minutes of July 10th, 2019?
I'll second it.
Everybody? I think I heard Ms. Perry the loudest.
How did I not get on that one?
Second? Lose. Thank you.
Second, didn't you?
Okay.
Just did.
You would call roll.
Here.
Luder.
Yes.
Perry. Yes. Braverman. Yes. Charnas.
Yes.
Klein.
Abstain.
Bilski.
Yes.
Duper.
Yes. Can I have a motion to award the bid for the asphalt program for 2019, specialized construction, in the amount not to exceed $201,782.80. I'll make the motion. Is there a
Second.
Mr. Zugan, do you want to, or Brian? Anyone?
Anybody?
I don't care.
We're paying Brian extra to be here, so let's hear it from him.
Yeah, this is just for the award of this, for specialized construction. Obviously, only one bidder would be concerning, but because it is a chip seal program, there's only a few contractors that actually do this type of work. Specialized has worked in the village tons of times for us. Everybody know that's your favorite question. Again, with this, it's the chip seal of Smithfield, Hilltop, and Sterncrest, and then just some miscellaneous asphalt repair predominantly on Brainerd and Miles Road. They're in under the estimate, and I would recommend the award.
Does anybody have questions? Do you just because some people are newer, just how this process works of getting the bids and
basically, you know, we've come before council with the project that we're anticipating and doing with an estimate of where we anticipate the project coming into. Put plans together. Once we're authorized, we put the plans together. We put it out for bid for a 2-week process. Bids come in. You know, public bid opening. Right back here.
And can I add to that, please? Just for the newer people, we have an infrastructure levy, the dedicated revenue source for infrastructure projects. It's all funneled into one account, and from that account, we do the infrastructure projects. So it's at the end of each cycle, we do like a 10-year projection of what needs to be done, but that gets fine-tuned every year. Bob and Brian go out and they determine this year's projects. But we know we have about a $750,000 income stream from that dedicated revenue source. Infrastructure projects. When there's going to be a big project, we do less one year to hold off to the next year. But there's a budget, a dollar amount, and we've never asked to do a project unless we have the money to do it.
Not to get into specifics, you know, just for anyone who might not know, when do you decide chip and seal versus regular asphalt?
Generally, if the road is side streets are generally, you know, less traffic, can handle the chip seal much better, and also condition. You know, if the road's rutting and all this, cracked up, really needs in-depth repair, we wouldn't do a chip seal only because it won't last. Generally, this is a maintenance item that'll last 6 to 8 years. It's anticipation. We have done roads such as Pike Drive and gotten 10 years out of it. But it's an inexpensive maintenance project, basically.
If you ever, and maybe we did show you, I don't know, but there's a big map, I think maybe we showed you the service department, and it has all the roads and the last dates we did things, and so it's planning before it gets to the specific.
Just real quickly, do you have any reason to anticipate there will be less than this?
Not
This is not to exceed,
No, I mean, as with all our projects, we have discretionary money if miscellaneous things come up. It's usually around 10% for all the projects. In most cases, we don't get into a lot of discretionary money, unless, of course, we find something else that we can fit in under the project and get it fixed right away.
This is the construction cost only. On top of this construction cost, there's always the inspection fees and the engineering fees.
Any other comments? Call roll, please.
Cluter,
Yes.
Perry. Yes. Braverman. Jarnes. Klein.
Yes.
Bilski.
Yes.
Duber.
Yes. I'll make a motion to award the bid for the concrete road repair program for 2019 to CA Agresta Construction in $35,745. Is there a second? Thank you. Brian, if you want to explain that as well.
Again, this is another very familiar contractor with us. This is just miscellaneous concrete repairs, pretty much all concrete areas in the village. Harvard Road, a couple on Brainerd, Miles, Orangewood, we have miscellaneous everywhere, Lander Road. 5 bidders, or 5 took out plans, 4 submitted bids. Obviously, the contractor was right on the estimate, what we were anticipating. Again, very familiar with them. No issues here. Definitely recommend Agresta with the award.
Any comments, questions, concerns? If you would call roll, please.
Perry.
Yes.
Braverman.
Yes.
Jarnes.
Yes.
Klein. Bilski.
Yes.
Duber.
Make a motion to award the contract for street striping for 2019 to JD Striping at a cost not to exceed $19,020.50. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Bob, is this you?
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, we put out 3 bids, asked 3 companies to look at this and give us numbers, and we only had one come in. JD Striping has done pretty much our striping for the last number of years. So with one bid, he's right in line with the numbers which we've done in the past. We got a little more to do this year, so looking to have that go with the JD Striping.
Questions? If you would call roll, please.
Cluter.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
Braverman.
Yes.
Jarnes.
Yes.
Klein.
Aye.
Bilski.
Yes.
Duber.
Break it up.
Yeah, and I do want to add back to the asphalt and the concrete program. I just want to make council cognizant that we did apply for reimbursement money from Cuyahoga County. So material cost only on the asphalt and concrete. So we will be seeing some of that money come back from in the form of reimbursement from the county. Final numbers won't be there though until we have quantities.
Is that just on certain streets?
County.
Just the county?
Yep.
The ones they've heard of?
The ones they don't take care of anymore.
Thank you. Moving on to audience comments relating to agenda items only. Anyone? And moving on to old business, ordinance 2019-18, an ordinance approving and confirming the appointment of Robert M. Brown as the Orange Village Planner, establishing a rate of compensation for professional planning services, and repealing certain ordinances. This is on for second reading. The administration has requested suspension of the rules. Is there a motion for suspension?
So moved.
There's second. Thank you. If you want to call roll on suspension.
Cluter.
Yes.
Perry. Braverman. Jarnes.
Yes.
Klein.
Yes.
Bilski.
Yes.
Duber.
Yes. And I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2019-18. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Introduce Mr. Brown.
Please, go ahead.
Bob Brown. You have his resume and his curricula vitae in your packet, and we're very appreciative and excited to have Bob Brown working for us. Certainly qualified.
Anybody have any comments, questions? Off easy. If you'd call roll, please.
Luder?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Braverman? Yes.
Yes.
Klein?
Of course.
Bilski?
Yes.
Zuber?
Yes.
Congratulations, welcome aboard. Of office.
No, do we have to have?
But let me just say the words and we can, make another one. I'll just read the words for something else.
Yeah, you can become the service director.
The lieutenant.
Bob didn't react.
You in, but she's just going to get a copy of the oath.
Yeah.
We have a last name that's well known in the planning profession.
Joyce? Did she retire?
No. Anne Clavora works with her, but it was still planning. She had to stay for the bank and. Yeah, actually, in my really old days, I worked for kind of the county planning commission, and Joyce was in the chair, who went to us that, when she just graduated college.
Dated. Able to grab one like here.
Started out 3.5, we could have gone anywhere up to 5 or down to 2.
We're down to 2. Yeah.
That's great.
And then,
3 out of 4
and then, yeah, then we go to, go to Minnesota tonight and tomorrow see what we can do.
Yeah, I think 3 out of 4 would be great. We had
You know what it says?
this month. My very first planning job in Greater Cleveland, back in 1976 or so. I listened to doing a master plan for your former neighbor, Warren Township.
Unbelievable.
Now,
Their pitching is just so solid. And hitting is,
up into 11 games, they averaged 2 runs and 5 hits. 5 hits, shut out 2 times.
they could probably use you.
Not to go to games.
Not to go to, you mean not to hit?
I state your name.
I, Robert Brown,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the rules, regulations, and charter of Orange Village,
the rules, regulations, and charter of Orange Village,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
honestly, and impartially
honestly, and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as village planner of Orange Village,
as village planner of Orange Village,
State of Ohio,
State of
during
Ohio,
my continuance in said office.
during my continuance in said office.
Welcome, congratulations.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. And then
Welcome.
Congratulations. Nice to see you again.
council people, your hand. And
Nice to see you. And I did work closely with Brad Dave Hartnell over all those many years.
the rest of the council people, and we'll put you to work. Thanks, Bob.
Officially.
Meet you.
Hi again.
Again,
Nice to
congratulations.
meet you. Nice to meet you.
Bob, yeah, forget about it.
Well, yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Right, moving on to new business, ordinance 2019-19, ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District and declaring an emergency. This is on for first reading. The administration has requested rules.
This is
this?
for, so that we can access the funds that yeah, because we're moving forward with a project, and we're going to use the funds that are on deposit for us at the sewer district, and so we have to enter into this agreement to draw them out. Did I say it all? Anything else to add?
Miles Road Culvert, it's a joint project with the city of Solon. We're using our funds from the storm sewer. We have to pass this in order to access those funds. So this project then will not be coming out of the infrastructure unless there's any kind of.
We still have, they still have to come back and we still have to get the bids and then get permission.
Still have to get, yes.
But this is for us to access the money we're going to use for this project. And the deadline is soon, right? So we would like suspension.
Is there a motion to suspend?
So moved.
Second?
You want to call roll on suspension, please?
Luder?
Yes.
Perry? Yes. Braverman?
Yes.
Charnes? Klein?
Yes.
Bilski?
Yes.
Duber?
Yes. Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2019-19? I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any other comments?
I've one question. Is the engineering done for this already, or what's the status of that?
Yeah, we're just finalizing some stuff with the City of Solon.
So it's
An agreement with them, too.
Is there an agreement with Solon relative to the project and engineering?
Steve says we already did.
Didn't we already?
Did you say how much?
How much, this project is what, 30,000 for us?
We had applied for issue 2 funding for this, and we had, in order to do that, we had to have an agreement with Solon as to how that was going to work. So we went and entered into an agreement before,
That was over a year ago.
over a year ago.
And this is what?
Well, we applied for different,
Access the funds that the storm comes from.
that's because we applied for funding throughout which, and then it got kicked down to local, and we got turned down for everything all the way down, so that's where we're at.
Here's what?
Looks like 60,000? 62,000?
I don't remember. It's like
A little more than half of it,
Right.
right?
That's what I'm asking.
But does Solon's money,
Less than half.
It's 55-45 with words of 45?
40 or 45%.
So we're getting 30.
We're getting whatever we need to cover our share.
Yeah, our share is going to be 100% covered
That's what I'm asking.
through our
do we know that the Solon has their share of the funds in place for this?
What did you ask?
Do we know if Solon has the funds in place for this too, so it can go forward?
They agreed.
No, they've signed a certification of funds.
Okay.
Any other comments? If you want to call roll on that, please.
Luder?
Yes.
Perry?
Yes.
Braverman?
Yes.
Charnes?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Bilski?
Yes.
Yes. Just popped into my mind, unrelated, but due to Solon, did we ever get reimbursed for the water main break?
We did. We did, yes.
Was that a while ago, or was that more recent?
What?
Was
No,
that-
more recent.
Okay.
Maybe 6 weeks ago we kind of got it? 2
We're,
months ago?
are we bidding and supervising the project? Are we bidding and supervising the project?
We are looking at Solon possibly covering the observation of the project that they have in-house.
Who designed it?
We did.
And when we advertising for bids?
We will be.
So the agreement will be coming back to council. So they'll see, that was Herb's question.
My question. I want to
Yeah.
make sure.
The Solon agreement will come back?
No, the contractor.
Oh, yeah, to accept the bid. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, every bit out for us.
No, comma, after.
Yeah, okay.
Moving on to ordinance 2019-20, an ordinance amending certain sections of chapter 1143 of the codified ordinances of Orange Village to require sidewalks, recreational trails, or similar facilities with certain exceptions. This is on for first reading. It will be referred to planning and zoning, but I'd like to discuss this a little bit. This is relative to the private developments.
Yeah, this
And-
goes for every development in the village. Public or
It's not retroactive.
Dave Hart wrote an ordinance, and you thought it was over-encompassing?
yes. I think there was an easier way to solve what we're solving for, which is we want sidewalks, recreational trails, bike paths, or similar facilities in all of the new developments.
So current new developments require that there should be sidewalks on both sides of the street?
Well, they have to show where they will be installed. And on the development plan requirements, the standards require them to allow pedestrian traffic to be separated from motor vehicle traffic.
I don't know that it requires both sides, or dictates that specifically.
It doesn't.
So here's my concern with this is, well, first of all, I think it would be prudent to maybe let all of council see what Dave Hart came up with, just so we could see that and see what differences there are here. My concern with the language here is that it indicates that they're required unless planning and zoning determines that they're not necessary, and it's specifically for the safety of pedestrians. But I think that's a pretty low standard argument to make on a lot of these, and I think it should be a higher standard than that.
Higher than planning and zoning did not say, or higher than not be necessary?
I think that the standard of not being necessary for the safety of pedestrians is a pretty low standard and requirement, and I don't think that is very specific. I think it is required, period, and if there's some type of hardship or something else indicating why it shouldn't be there, that then they would make their case to planning and zoning. But I don't think that, in my opinion, or whatever that's worth, I don't think this is a high enough standard, personally.
Yeah, there are two components of what you raised. One is, does planning and zoning make the determination? Or two, do you have a hard rule which requires a variance, and that would, of course, come back to council and have council exercise the final authority. You are correct. This is set up so that the Planning and Zoning Commission makes the determination about whether the development plan meets the necessary condition. The second issue, aside from who decides, is what is the standard? And you're saying the standard.
So I don't necessarily like either of those. I think that it should be I don't think the standard's high enough, and I think it should be a set rule, and you would have to apply for a variance, which is essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, what part of David Hart's ordinance had indicated.
He wrote an ordinance, he wrote
No, he.
all the code sections.
Yeah, he wrote some code sections.
Well,
I'd have to go back and look at it specifically.
Whatever he did.
He
had a recommendation.
Yeah, happy to go back and take a look at that. I understand the issue. Obviously, it's policy choice on how you structure these things. There's often the debate, and you saw it in the Pinecrest development. A lot of the administrative activity is deferred to the planning.
But I don't see this as just like where we're putting plants and flowers and flower beds and what certain things look like. This is bigger.
Brandon just wants to start with the default being what sidewalks are in, and then somebody has to come to planning and zoning and convince.
I think they have to. I think you should have to apply for a variance.
Well,
otherwise, which would then that would.
And it can be, we can write it that way. We can put it so that sidewalks shall be provided on both sides of the street, period, end of discussion. And that would trigger the requirement of somebody applying for a variance, going through the plan. I mean, it's one stop with the planning commission, they come to council.
Yeah.
The only question I have on that is, somebody's going to come in and say that it's not economical, but the economics of sidewalks on both sides of the street suggest that we should be given a variance so that it's one side, and that's not covered technically speaking by our variance language.
Right.
So I think we have to be a little more, when we talk about variance, I think we have to agree that planning and zoning could look at an economics argument that would pretty persuasive.
Well, that,
But we've never used an economic argument before for variance.
establishing criteria.
We have our planner here tonight. How about engaging him in this kind of?
Than the variance standard, where the variance standard is, it's not essentially,
It's not a
paraphrasing, it's not necessary to advance the health safety more.
Yeah, just be careful about, once you start talking about whether it's economically feasible, then that's even a more, gray standard.
Language isn't, and it hasn't really been applied in that fashion typically, what we say. I can't remember possible.
What does our new planner think, maybe?
If you look at the other standards that are here, the one immediately above it, on-site traffic circulation shall be designed to make possible adequate fire and police protection. I mean, that's a standard that the Planning and Zoning Commission is applying. That's an issue that's sent out to professionals, fire and police. This triggered the issue because I put a standard in, and I thought that the purpose of sidewalks is for the safety of pedestrians. I may be wrong about that.
That's not the only, I think that is a purpose. I don't think that is the purpose.
Sometimes it's just appearance.
It's
Aesthetic, there's an aesthetic.
It's a more neighborhoodly type of, creates streets that are more, I guess, neighborly. Even if it's not unsafe for pedestrians, it could be more safe for pedestrians or kids or whatever. I just think it's such a gray standard that
With the size of the developments, the small ones, I'm thinking of the small ones.
But I think those are ones that could come up to planning and zoning and say, look, we have 4 houses here, and houses are on one side of the street, and I think that's a fair argument for a variance to be made where they make
But the reason for giving a variance don't allow that.
Well, that's why I'm suggesting that you would need to identify what the standard is, and you can't just say, because it doesn't make sense, but that's where we're going. Oxford Court is a good example.
Yeah.
What do they have, 5 or 6 houses?
Well, except for Oxford's a circle.
Semicircle.
But that makes sense because you just have one sidewalk that goes around. It's a loop.
How about Cambridge Court?
Does it have a sidewalk?
No.
Yes.
Does
Cambridge Court has sidewalks.
Cambridge Court
Has
does,
sidewalks.
but does Oxford?
Well,
Both
it bends around,
Yeah, but I don't think.
Cambridge is on both sides.
What, it's on both sides?
Yeah, it is.
To a point.
So why would it be any different than a dedicated right-of-way requires sidewalks on both sides, correct?
That's been the interpretation.
Right, and so my viewing of this was that it would be for the non-dedicated as well.
And that's why we put it in the development plan requirement, to where you're going to pick that up.
But this negates a requirement, and it looks like it's, does this loosen the standard for dedicated as well?
No.
No.
Subdivision standard.
Right, so then it still has a different standard for dedicated versus non. Which I think I am.
Let me ask
Does anybody else have any
Does-
opinions?
Does the residential portion of Pinecrest call for sidewalks on both sides, or on any side?
I don't know.
Or, and
We don't have a plan.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I-
but if they go to our code now to
Make the plan, do they see anywhere we better put sidewalks in?
In the development plan approval process,
are they going to
you
claim
can,
that they're
you can,
grandfathered?
no,
they-
I mean, you
No, they're a new development.
to control traffic, spaces, walkways, where pedestrian traffic's going to go. We just, as a practical matter, have not required it and not required them on private streets.
Right.
But a lot of our developments are private, and my opinion is that the only advantage, I don't know anybody who lives in any development that doesn't have sidewalks that would prefer not to have sidewalks. I know, Mayor,
We
and
used to have trails
trails in Landwoodland and they took them away.
Well, and how did you feel about that?
I liked the trails.
Okay, and how would you have liked sidewalks in your development?
I like them, but I don't know how they would have gone on every.
Well, yeah, but, and that's where there could be something, but, you know, I know that in my development, every single person would like to have sidewalks there, and so I look at it as the wording of this, the only advantage goes to a developer as opposed to, that's why I'm not fond necessarily of the way that this is currently written.
Understood.
But it says you have to have it to separate the pedestrian. Unless. So I don't know.
This is just if it's not necessary for safety. So you could say that in my development, you have a 20-mile speed limit, and what's not necessary for safety? I mean, I get it if you're talking,
You just don't think that the safety should be the only criteria.
I don't think that safety should be the only criteria. I think it should be a default that it is necessary,
I
period.
just stated that you have to have them, and there is, you know, like any other thing in the code, you apply for a variance that, at the time of submission.
The difference
Our
is,
variance has a certain standard.
But maybe our variance standard doesn't necessarily appear here in this. This isn't where that exists.
No, because he left the planning and zoning, which is not a variance process. Brandon's adding a variance process.
to it.
It would come to council.
Yeah.
Which I think it should, because if we're talking about developments, because, for example, the Lakes of Orange, my personal opinion is that there should be sidewalks throughout. There's sidewalks only, yeah, well, of course, I can't do anything about now, but generally speaking, yeah, I know you can't go retro, but generally speaking, it's only for in the Lakes of Orange, it's only for the dedicated portion, and I think they're gonna put some stuff throughout otherwise, but
They don't have to.
A, it looks weird, and B, I don't know if it's, I think they should have to do it. And I can guarantee that there's not anybody who's gonna be moving in the Lakes of Orange in the part that's not dedicated, which, there's a couple weird things about that, but who's not gonna go, oh, I wish I also had sidewalks?
Whether you have to do it or not is a case-by-case decision. But all we're trying to do, all you're saying, I believe, is that we want to start with the default position that they have to do it, let them cover up and persuade us that they don't have to. On a
Yeah, but right
variance-
now-
on a variance basis, but the question, I mean, you still have to do something with the variance language in order to really make that compatible with what our discussion is.
Well, if you want, if
Because
you.
they're going to come in with an economic argument.
What if it goes through this process and planning and zoning makes a determination, and could it add an extra step of confirmed by council?
I don't even,
It's very difficult to implement.
Well, I just don't want to get it into the variance thing,
but why?
because they have to prove a hardship. They have to prove things that aren't
Practical
necessarily pertinent to this.
Practical difficulties.
Yeah,
But what would the reason be besides a practical difficulty?
See, I could see putting it just, if it was a small private street, I could see maybe just one side. I mean, we did that.
Well, they could do one.
There could be topographic or physical conditions that would suggest that you can't do it on both sides, you know. That would trigger a variance. Like you have on Cambridge Court.
Just thinking about something, if in the planning it doesn't make sense, if there's only 4 houses on one side, and, you know,
But-
that doesn't meet a variance standard, but would pass reason, you know, like we would say, oh, that doesn't make sense to put it on that side.
But if it was dedicated and it was 4 streets, it would have to be there. So why not dedicated? I just don't see the problem then. So you have a street that's 4 streets and or 4 houses and you have it on both sides.
So that would definitely be an economic argument.
Well, if it's only 4 houses, it can't be that much of an economic argument if you're talking about, what, a football field of cement for a sidewalk?
If something went in, where's your house, Lisa? That way. You know, something went in those 14 acres next to Lisa.
Is there something we should know about?
No.
Okay, all right.
The inquiries I've had are that there's no appetite for rezoning it, that it should stay 1.5 acre. But I could see that that could be a single load. You would only put the sidewalk on one side. You wouldn't-
Why?
Because you wouldn't have a reason to walk on the other side. If the houses are only on one side, it would make sense for,
Kind of a, I mean, wasn't there that issue with the property next to,
Why would the Orange Village cross the road? That's what she's asking.
What are you thinking of?
the straight run.
thought of another development at one point that was off of Miles, that was going to have a street of just houses on one side?
Yes.
And the village said no to that.
Well, no, we made a deal, we swapped the land.
Okay.
But yes.
Because that would have,
Loaded.
that would have been weird anyways.
Oh, it would have been horrible.
So I just don't see that, which is my point to that I don't see that scenario coming up where they're going to build a street with a dead end with houses on one side and
There was a proposal to do that on the Prokaska property quite a few years ago.
there's a wooded area on the other side that you'd like to look at. Well, it'd be nice to stroll on your sidewalk next to the woods. I just don't see a rationale.
It would be nice to give this some more teeth going in, I agree.
Well, but that would be why they would want to pursue a variance if the developer feels that they're putting a sidewalk on both sides of the street creates a problem for them, that there's a need for it, then they go for variance.
Problem that there's not enough space or whatever. If they do that, then that's varianceable.
Yeah, well, all you're saying is you have to do this except you come for a variance.
Be a variance.
If there's not a logistical issue to it, then
Side, because the other side had wetlands and they couldn't do it, that's a variance.
it's a variance, and then it's fine. But
Maybe economic.
When the moon hits your eye like a big piece of pie.
Out for economic.
This going to planning and zoning, yes? Yes? Okay, well, let's get a recommendation.
But I think they want to amend the language.
Oh, now? I was going to ask the Lord Director.
So if I'm hearing a consensus developing, this is your call, actually.
Well, it's not my call, it's everybody's
No,
call.
In terms of revising
Yes.
this draft, we want sidewalks on both sides of the street for recreational trails or bike paths or
Even though
whatever.
we didn't put it on both sides, you think it's fair?
What?
Yeah. Because these are new streets going in.
Yeah.
We were retrofitting old streets, so. And just require them on both sides of the street and just leave that as the requirement. And then if somebody wants to come and ask for changes, it would be a variance process. And I'm looking at 1142.06.
That's the variance?
Yeah. Yeah. B, it has what are known in the industry as the Duncan factors from the Duncan versus Middlefield case. Will the property yield a reasonable return? Substantial. Will the character of the neighborhood be substantially altered? Will the variance adversely affect delivery of governmental services? Was the property purchased with knowledge of the zoning restriction? Can property owners predicament be solved through some other method? Will the spirit and intent of the zoning code be observed? And are there any other circumstances that should be considered? So there's that's the standard that you look at when you're granting.
So that would be my preference. I don't know about everyone else.
Mr. Lord Director, so you will amend this? You're going to check, and then we will get the revised copy in the next council package, and then it goes to planning and zoning? I already did.
Let's answer this question first, and then we'll go to.
I mean, is that the plan?
Is to take what I've just described, do an amendment, send it to P&Z, but you could see the copy next week.
Yes, that's what I was, yeah.
For sense for it,
Well, P&Z wouldn't see it
Us
the
for-
20th anyway.
When do you meet?
would
Okay.
it
We're
make,
not having it next Tuesday.
No.
so would it make more sense for us, for it to come back to us so we can
Yes.
see it before it goes to
Yes.
planning?
Yeah.
And just maybe put it for first reading again as a second reading, or can you do second reading and then send to planning? So maybe,
You got to amend the
Remember.
piece.
don't know if we changed, because we changed it in the charter, but,
Well, what we changed is variances don't come.
Oh, the variances don't, here
This is-
comes fir-
This is a piece of legislation.
so,
Amend the legislation.
I would say, why doesn't it come back to us first? Well, first, let's make sure that everybody else on council likes
I'll tell
this.
you what, just don't refer it.
I'm not.
And is there a race to, is there something that we're trying to get ahead of, that we're getting this in? So why don't we get it right here and then refer it?
Yeah, I agree. But what's everybody feel?
Fine.
Do you guys have any opinion on the actual?
Well, yeah, I think you make it, make it as stringent as we can, make someone, if they wanted, have a reason to, whatever their reason is, making them present it, as opposed to leaving it very.
And it'll be in front of us next week, so if we don't like it, if you could put it on for first reading, we'll go over it again.
But will you also, just send Dave Hart's?
Sure.
And then maybe also pass out that, the variance language, just with the next draft, just so everybody has that. Just a reminder, refresher.
Now, isn't it?
What?
I mean, the changes aren't going to take it off of the book.
No, so we'll just do it for second reading, and then we'll refer it after second reading.
Yeah, technically, you're supposed to refer it after first reading,
We'll
but.
make it first reading and
Make
amend.
it first reading.
Reading is
There you go.
amended.
So we'll just do first reading again. Okay, that was fun.
Very good. Yeah, that's right, we tabled it.
No,
We'll just do another first reading for the amended version. Doesn't matter. All right. Moving on. Ordinance 2019-21, ordinance amending section 331.37 of chapter 331. Oh, I'm sorry, did you want to add anything? Agrees with our opinion?
Now you're asking him. Do you want to?
Switch at the bottom so it turns on. 'cause
I
that-
think it is on, isn't it?
No.
No, on the bottom of the microphone.
On the
Mic back.
bottom.
With the mic.
There you go. I wasn't sure.
Is there an instructional video? Okay, I got it.
You are videoed.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Works,
You are videoed.
Very good.
now being on video.
Your screen.
Okay, very good. So, I think you're right that in general, there should be a default that when a new street goes in, there should be a sidewalk. Now, I would have to say, sometimes there will only be development on one side of the street. It may be that topographically, the other side of the street slopes down, and you're just not going to have people walking on that side of the street. So it may be, like you said, that the default should be there's sidewalks on both sides, but there's a provision for getting an exception when it just doesn't make sense to have a sidewalk on a particular side of the street because of topography or just the lack of use of that side of the street by people walking.
But doesn't that get, if you just do an exception of a doesn't make sense, that's not really a standard.
There should be criteria. I think, just like for a variance, there should be criteria in the code as to when that exception would be granted. I know, there's a distinction, though, when you're dealing with the public right-of-way, it's not necessarily a zoning variance. When you're dealing with private property, it is. So there is really two different situations here, a private road versus a public road, and there really are probably two different standards that have to be taken into account. One's a variance on the private road, the other is really not a variance, and normally a zoning variance doesn't apply to the public right-of-way, it applies to private property. So there's a distinction there, but the end goal would be the same, that you want a sidewalk along any new road, and you want it along both sides, unless there's a reason why it doesn't make sense on one side. And you could have that criteria written into the code.
Okay.
Just go through the variance.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
I'm sure whatever Dave Hart did was great.
Steve didn't think so.
That's why we'll distribute it out so council can confirm it.
All right, moving on. Where were we? Ordinance 2019-21, ordinance amending section 331.37 of chapter 331 of the Codified Ordinances of Orange Village to prohibit the operation of vehicles on recreational trails in the village.
We have that problem already?
For first reading.
So I have a question about this. Is there any reason we wouldn't just pass this tonight on emergency reading? I mean, this,
So, the vehicle definition is kind of, I don't want to get loose.
Three-wheeler?
There's a lot of things that could be a vehicle.
Vehicle's a motor vehicle.
There's a guy with a bicycle on three wheels.
What if a Lime scooter comes into this neighborhood?
So if it's motorized,
A moped?
technically it would not.
This is as tight as you can make it. Bicycles only.
The
That
problem,
means no skateboards, no go-karts, no, what's the, race, pine box derby. I mean.
Soapbox derby.
Unless it's
problem is, if you start,
Has a motor.
well, so.
They're out.
That's been a discussion. So the problem you have is, if you start saying yes to certain things, it's, like for e-bikes, if you say e-bikes are okay, some of them go up to 8 miles an hour, and some of them go up to 40 miles an hour. And so, obviously, I don't think Chief Castoria wants to sit there with radar on the trail. So it's a slippery slope. Now, I think if there's a kid in a little Tykes motorized, like, little thing, who's like going 2 miles an hour, I don't know what the chief will do, but I'm guessing he's probably.
Pull them over.
So, I think it's probably,
Excessive force.
the chief and I have talked about this, and I know Steve and I have talked about this, and it's because I brought up these same issues with it, but when we started talking about it, it's a very tough to
Brandon's
define.
kid that'll be doing it.
Okay.
leave a little room for common sense.
And we understand, that there's all these different types of motorized vehicles out there.
Yeah.
The problem is trying to identify what's going to be permitted, what's not going to be permitted, and after today, what other vehicles are going to be made that aren't going to fall into any category, and we're going to be back at it again.
Segue? There's a segue?
What's so amusing about this is that I was in Columbus when we were corresponding about this. They had 2 sessions, one on e-bicycles and one on scooters. Columbus has a major scooter activity, and they were covering how they are regulating. It's like city bike, and you don't have the population for that. They're not coming here. You're not dense enough to make.
It doesn't prohibit somebody from riding the same type of bike at that speed.
Exactly right. And the state legislation leaves to the local government the decision-making. Do you want e-bikes? Do you want e-scooters? Do you want non-motorized stuff? So you have the authority to do whatever you want, to set such regulations as you want, and the chief's recommendation is only
Motorized. But if it's only bicycles, I think they should be allowed to have self-propelled scooters. But it's the electronics, because then, as Brandon and I had spoke, how many CCs, how many miles per hour, and we are not going to have a list of all the current e-vehicles out there, and all the ones that are coming afterwards, to try and determine which ones fall into this category, don't fall into this category. And there's a safety factor here.
The door everybody's going to go through.
I mean, we were talking about, can you do,
There's a safety factor on the other side, though, too. If you put them on the street now, aren't they, you put a,
Some of them are actually street legal, pending, like mopeds can be street legal. And so and once again, it runs the whole gamut. We have those hoverboards. They have no business being in the street, but they also can move at a pretty good clip if you're going forward with it.
if
And
you're not being a jerk about it, you're probably, nobody's going to notice anything.
I would suggest that, people are behaving, and we'll just leave it at behaving. That would be nice. And that's about all I can say about that. But we're trying to avoid.
Seems to me you're trying to avoid things like ATVs and
Gas versus electric, if it's electric, you could have a Tesla driving up the trail.
And we spoke about those e-bikes. I actually looked at them to see what they're like for police departments and that. And they can go up to 35 miles an hour. So an electric bike is not,
if it's motorized, it's gonna have the capabilities of doing something that,
Good start, and if we find there's a pattern, or we find there's particular things, we can get more specific. But right now, if you just say no motorized, then we can.
Chief,
Are the trails built so that they can handle heavy-duty?
it has nothing to do with the weight. It has to do with people pulling in and out of their driveways, blind spots, mailboxes, people, and
Somebody walking with their dog and somebody going 40 miles an hour and racing and taking out a couple
a
people.
lot of,
I'm asking, were the trails intended to carry even?
They will support that, but in the process of us doing the trails, we have a resident down on Lander Road that's concerned about it, visibility issues, because now if you have somebody that's moving at a faster pace and they're backing out of their driveway, they're pulling out of their driveway, they're pulling in, it's a new learning curve for them. They have to try and judge what kind of safe distance they have to, maneuver that, count into, hills and stuff like that. I personally, I've seen snowmobiles in our park. I've seen damage to our ball fields. I've seen them going down the trails. I've seen just the other day a motorized scooter that went down the trails. It was a homemade bicycle, and they put some type of motor on it, sounded like a chainsaw, and they went up and started doing circles around the playground. I don't think that's the place for it. I've got people on golf carts that are going to the garden. I mean, it's coming, Segways are very popular now too, and those things get to move around. So I don't know what the answer is. I have seen some things going on, and I've heard voiced concerns by residents about people and pulling in and out of their driveway. I think it's easier with their walking or riding a bicycle as opposed to something motorized.
This legislation is doing, this legislation is taking the existing regulation of our sidewalks in subdivisions, adding recreational trails and applying the standard that exists for the sidewalks, nothing other than bicycles, which is a very strict standard, and applying it to the recreational trail.
But we're facing the problem of people thinking they can use the recreational trails for a motorized vehicle.
Right, and the second aspect of this legislation is you post a sign.
Well, we're not gonna post them all over. I don't know what you're
Yeah,
posting
some
there, but maybe
It doesn't say how many signs or
Yeah,
what.
because we don't-
Well, I think.
Well, just let them know in the newsletter, just like everything else.
Well, I think.
You think everybody reads the newsletter? I'm sorry to break the news to you.
What to occur is conversation by the police,
People, somebody coming from Solon,
identifying them
look at a
and
newsletter.
time
I
around.
mean, I think if we put a sign like, at the edges of the village, you put it,
That's the standard way of doing it.
And-
Somebody will complain, which is why the police department can always have a.
unless they're doing something,
Is that this existing is for we didn't have recreational trails on main streets. Now people are saying, oh, I'm going to go to Pinecrest. Well, it's far. Hey, I'm going to buy an e-bike. I don't want to be on the street. So I understand your point. So I do think we need something that says the recreational trails are not for electric. I don't think anyone was buying an e-bike to ride around Orange Tree. They would ride their regular bike, but now this is a lot further, I want something that's going to get me there.
but, and if you're on your e-bike and Chief Custard can't really tell that you're on an e-bike, even if you have a little E going, then it's probably not a problem. I'm not saying that people should break rules, but I'm just saying if,
here's the thing.
What if Uber
buddy.
with a tandem
This
bike?
is why we made it so strict, so we don't have all these questions about if this, if that, if the other.
Well, they have these e-bike.
And
Chief, can I
it's a safety issue.
Can I ask you, this is supposed to be for bicycles, then what do we do about the cyclists who are not on the trails and they're in the road? Which is, what are you going to do with that?
They're allowed.
We're not changing.
Okay, so they're allowed,
And they
okay.
still do.
Okay, no, I know, I just,
Some people that ride leisurely are using the recreational trail, and that's the good person to have on there. And then you'll notice the ones that are kind of dressed for the job and.
you don't want those on the trail.
No.
I mean,
no, I agree, but I just wanted to know, I wanted a definition, I wanted to know.
They're allowed on the trail, but they won't ride those because of
quick enough.
they want to go this way, they don't want to go like this.
and they also don't want to be cognizant of
Tour
every
de
driver.
France, Tour de Orange.
different.
Let me ask a question.
It was scary this morning.
The intersection of a recreational trail, is it clear who has the right of way?
I've already received calls about that in my office too, and I send them right to Duber or Byron or somebody that knows the legal stuff. Listen, and I don't know, but that's a good question, and there's some homes that have shrubbery that if somebody's coming at a certain rate of speed and they're small,
You can't see.
there's going to be collision.
Car coming out of the driveway.
You can do that with a kid on a,
Hold on, Steve's trying to answer it,
The
yeah.
Orange Village Code incorporates the Ohio Revised Code for these provisions. The rule has always been, anything on a sidewalk, a driveway has to yield to. So the sidewalk's going to have the right of way because the thinking is that and of course, people always wave each other through, depending, what's going on. But
in a big wheel.
idea is that it's the smaller vehicle that has the right of way, like pedestrians in the crosswalk. Same type of situation.
Well, that's going to take some education in this community, that's all I can say.
Safety.
People are going to come rolling out of their driveway.
Absolutely,
If
yes.
you're in their way on
Yeah,
the
the-
trail or the sidewalk. It's every man for himself.
The beauty of the slower the vehicle, the less damage to everybody.
I think that ought to be,
Last newsletter, we wrote all about that.
yeah.
Write it again, bigger letters.
We all about set here?
I'll repeat it a few times.
Sign recently that said for sidewalks or paths or something, and I cannot remember where it was, but that you had to yield for the slower person.
Where did you see that?
Slow people
You're slow people walking, older folk.
But
I think we should live with it a little bit, too.
Oh, no, I'm a quick walker.
It's about bicyclists and pedestrians on the same trail, so it must have been a metro.
With this, and then see what other problems we,
I think we have a solution in search of a problem.
I think we have a pretty good solution.
My question is, we're retrofitting current legislation to add the recreational trails.
Yes.
So I don't see why this would be objectionable. Is there any reason to let this go to third reading, or should we just I would like to make a motion to suspend this because it makes sense and...
Second?
Second.
Okay. You want to call roll on suspension, please?
Luder?
Yes.
Perry?
No.
Braverman?
Yes?
Turnus?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Bilski?
Yes.
Duber?
Sure. Is there any other discussion?
So now we're thinking all motorized vehicles. What does that mean?
It's the same standard that it currently is for a sidewalk.
Motorized wheelchair.
Nothing, no vehicle, but a bicycle. That's it.
Which is what it already is, which is what it,
skates aren't motorized.
They're not motorized. But I think they're...
Wheelchairs are motorized.
They're
Skate on sidewalks.
Scooters.
Be some accidents.
vehicles.
but it's the same rule that is on the sidewalks in
It's
every.
the sidewalk rule, just applied to the recreational trails.
Right.
The discussion.
Roller skates.
Fine. Those aren't motorized. Well, a Segway is motorized, roller skates and a skateboard aren't.
Roller skates, skateboards.
Oh, you got that right.
Make it motorized vehicles.
Why do we need to add language to it, just include the recreational trails under the same umbrella as sidewalks? They regulated the same way.
Well,
What
that's
he's
how it
saying
was.
is that limits the recreational trails to bicycles and no other non-motorized
Looking for.
technique.
Yeah, well,
Those skates.
skates aren't necessarily motorized.
But we don't.
Except if you're the fox and or the coyote and...
There's like 30 people talking at once.
Here's the definition of vehicle. You have to go to a different code section in our code. Vehicle means every device, including a motorized bicycle, and it's being modified to add scooter. But yet, legislature is adopting it, including motorized.
You can't go on that.
Upon or by which any person or property may be transported or drawn upon a street, highway, except that vehicle does not include any motorized wheelchair, electric personal assistive mobility device, or any device other than a bicycle that is moved by human power. So I guess skateboard and roller skates would not, they're not defined as vehicles.
Right.
So they're permitted.
Yes, right. Excuse me.
Wait for the first accident.
Is anybody making a motion to pass it now?
Well, this is discussion before we, well, anything else? Okay, is there a motion to pass this ordinance?
Moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, if you would call roll, please.
Harry?
Yes. Okay.
Braverman?
Yes.
Charnes?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Bilski?
Yes.
Duber?
Yes. Moving on to,
Get those.
Before you move on, are
Yeah.
you guys doing anything to be aware of the volume of traffic on the recreational trails?
It's not very heavy yet.
Speed bump.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's there, but it's not very heavy.
Can you report when you see things?
I've seen a few times.
Yeah, but not a lot. Yeah.
To us, it's,
Walkers.
how about a lawnmower pulling an 18-foot boat? How about I'm not kidding?
That's crazy.
A lot.
That's why I'm asking, and that's why I'm telling you.
Make a list. Been skiing behind the boat. Make a list and.
On a body of water, anywhere.
I hope you took a picture of that.
Did you post that to Facebook?
Lawnmowers are an exception. Lawn,
Just for the street, the lawn, street
right.
lawn.
All right,
Keep us posted.
moving on. Resolution 2019-8, resolution of support for efforts to secure Cleveland, Ohio green space conservation funding to preserve significant green space located in Orange Village, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
This is just to keep moving forward in order for us to apply for Clean Ohio. If we get into a position to be able to do it this cycle, we have to get this going because the county council has to have it by the end of August so that they can move it forward. We don't know if we'll be ready, we're working on it, but this is just the start of many grants that we will be hoping to accumulate to put towards the purchase of the property so that we can preserve and keep 50-some acres of it green space. This is just getting paperwork in place. We don't have anything organized yet to go forward with, but if we don't do this, we won't be able to.
Why 50, why not all, where's the number 50 come from? You said 50-something acres when that,
Oh, of the eight. Because I had Brian draw a map where it was, adjacent to the frontage.
but what if we had enough funding for 80-something acres or whatever that whole,
Well, I'm sure it can be adjusted, but the whole point was he just so that we had a map to show what we're doing, we're preserving the 50-some acres, and I don't know how he got to 20 acres, maybe you can explain. He just took a few hundred feet along Orange Place. Do you want to explain further?
was there like a specific plan or anything that came in to?
No, it's sort of what I've been trying to advance, which is just on anything going to be on the street, and then everything else is green.
What is going to be on this?
Is all green, would it be, I'm sorry.
Well, no, but we're not going to get anybody's money for all green. We have to have somebody who wants to develop to get money. Like the developer will put in $3, $4, $5 million.
Really commercial, but some kind of development.
You think for 20 acres?
On all that, we might not be able to go this round because we might have to have like a right of first refusal or something, and we don't have any of that. But if we don't get this in place, there's no point to even go for that.
Will this inhibit potential buyers?
This is great, if we can pull this off.
Will it constrict them? And
Right now, nobody's restricted. It's totally still for sale. I talked to the broker today, and I talked to Paul and Steve today, that we have to sit down and see if we can work up some kind of agreement that doesn't cost us anything, but gives us either first right or gives us control of it. We have to have some control. We have to, when we apply for the grants, we have to say, here's the land we have under agreement.
But if I were the homeowner, I would think that that would be making my property less valuable.
Okay.
Actually, it might be making it more saleable.
First of all, they get money for that option. Second of all, it's been on the market for how many years and nothing's happened, so I'm not really worried about that, but we have to have something in place in order to go for the grants. This is just sort of, at this point, a shot in the dark. Let's get it ready so that we can.
But Mayor, when I've asked about this property over the years, you said you were never thrilled with some of the applicants who came in front of you necessarily. Yes? No?
There is one entity who is interested in putting in some kind of continuing care retirement, senior, project. He doesn't need all of it, but he's willing to put in a few million to get a spot.
How many acres are they looking at? Would she be?
4 acres.
Would this proponent be, you have any idea?
None of this is fine-tuned enough to be able to answer that. I just know there's one developer who wants to do something that he'd put in like $3.5 million. We're just seeking sources of funding. Even if we get it, we don't have to go forward. But if we don't get this in place, we can't go forward to even see.
The resolution is about our getting funding for.
Trying to apply.
But, so, if we were to somehow get green space for that...
We'll never get 9 million.
No, that's not what I'm asking. Would any of this prevent us from, like, maybe putting trails and stuff like that through this?
Okay, I don't know enough about it yet, but I think that we can, if it's green space preservation, depending on the different grants, you can do passive things in it.
Yeah, for Clean Ohio, you can have trails.
They fund trails.
Yeah.
We won't do anything that will tie our hands.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have it green, but I think it would be even greater to have it green where there's some type of recreational use to it.
Well, and the metro parks would like to do that too.
Well, yeah.
Remember, this is an indication essentially to the county council that you are supportive of a project here. And then you get on their docket for further pursuit.
They have to say to Green Ohio that they approve it.
While that ball is in the air, the other ball is there actually some kind of deal that can be put together?
Need a trail.
That can put you in control of the property. Otherwise...
My vision, Francis...
For money that we could then buy the property?
Okay, the property is way too expensive for us. But if we can get a developer that wants to do something, and we can get green space money, maybe together with a donation, there's a value to donating, that we can split off the frontage of the Orange Place extension, let there be some development along that road, and then preserve all the rest of it. That's what that's the same vision I shared with you before, that's what...
I just wondered how much we would have to put in, we as a community.
To not put any money from our general...
You're hopefully.
We are looking to leverage grants as our share and the ability to contribute to us as a charitable deduction as our
You
share.
can't know that today.
No, I get it.
It's very complicated.
And Mayor, just a reminder, this grant is due in October, so this is the piece of the puzzle that needs to start before, if the parts aren't in place, we just let it walk away.
Missing deadline, the reason we're here this month is we have to get on county council's
And
agenda.
they have to have it by the end of August, so that they can say, yes, we're in favor too, if we get the packet together and submit.
Is this a one-time thing, or is this every year?
No, we can go every year.
Does our master plan need to be amended?
Well...
Because it's kind of a little different. I like this
We never
direction.
anticipated Pinecrest either. Yeah, so we'll change the master.
It doesn't
plan to
matter.
fit
Okay.
reality.
So nursing home facility there and green space behind, is that it?
That would go from Maynard to the backing up of
Worries me that we're taking private property and
Tree,
it's almost like a annexation type
and
of.
this would just kind of go along that edge.
More people, yeah.
There's a need for senior dwelling.
The property.
And if not, they would have an agreement with us that would have been paid for a price to take it off the market.
The village's approach to this has been an attempt to add value, both in terms of monies made available to the seller and accepting a donation of some portion of the value. And
We're their best deal.
Of our effort.
They are.
And we're engaged in conversations with them. I'm not certain what, I mean, if they've
Two
got
games, so we got.
No, we're going to meet and talk about all that, but an offer was made to them, they countered, we're nowhere close.
We've gone through their broker and explained the three pieces of the proposal. Two of the pieces are publicly related, the grant money and the donation, which a private buyer cannot offer. And to date, they've had the property on the market for as long as I've been here, I think. And it's not selling for what they're asking.
So can I just pose another hypothetical? I'm glad they're not objecting vehemently towards, doing something like this, but they're not, right?
No, they're not, and we're gonna sit down with them, they probably, I don't know if they understand, this is a problem, they don't really understand a lot of things, but I don't know if they understand that we are their best person to deal with.
Okay, so what if, just hypothetically, we have a development proposal that we just absolutely love, like it's exactly what we want, and it doesn't include that green space, it can go away?
I mean, if somebody comes in and negotiates for the land and brings us a deal that we like?
Erickson again,
Let's hope not.
I mean, just, right, okay, but.
No, yes, if we,
It's something that the seller really wants, it's something that we really want, but here is something that is impeding that.
just won't impede it, we just walk away from it.
Yeah.
Okay. We can't.
This does not tie our hands to anything. This is nothing legally.
I'm going to make a motion to pass resolution 2019-8. Is there a second?
We have to go on emergency first, or anything?
No, it's just a resolution.
Is there a second?
Second. Alan, take it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? If you would call roll, please.
Luder? Yes. Barry? Yes. Braverman? Yes. Charnes?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Bilski?
Yes.
Duber?
Yes. Moving on to audience comments relating to matters which advance the good of the village. Anyone, anything? Yes? If you would come up to the microphone, state your name and ask.
I am Brent Silver. I just wonder if we can get an update on the trails, just what's left and the timing.
Who are you? What's your name?
Brent Silver.
Where do you live?
Well, right now, they are working on the park pieces that are going to connect all through the park and on Pike Drive, and then they're working around behind the service department, and then behind our parking lot, which is why you couldn't park at the back, and they're going to connect that to the playground over there, and then they're going to go to Harvard Road.
What about miles?
What about what?
Miles Road.
It's last.
Brian?
It'll be next year. Okay. It will get done.
Is there any chance of it starting this year, or is that?
If they fly through, if we have
Yeah.
a mild winter, it could, but we're looking at,
Still haven't gotten their new updated timeline, have we?
not by date, just by locations.
So we have no idea if they'll be done with this phase by Salute to Orange?
Oh, they...
We're keeping an eye on that, so let's try and this orange.
They come down White Drive, and tie back in. That's when we're going to make that determination, either push them to Harbor or to go ahead and maybe skip the fire drive and stuff, because the fire drive is our biggest obstacle, obviously. You can't be half done with that, take a weekend off or something.
And will the barrels from Emory to Harvard, are those a permanent fixture, or are those going to?
They've been told, because
some of them are actually on the trails, because some people were asking me.
Grass, if we've been on them to get rid of them all.
No less than 4 or 5 times.
How is Harvard Road gonna work?
Good luck.
Harvard Road's gonna, well, the trail.
Which way?
Westbound. It'll be open
They
westbound.
indicated that they wanted to start by Whole Foods and work their way east, but that's certainly subject to change. They'll be able to, it'll be one way, westbound only. The good thing is, they'll be still able to maintain traffic west of the Harvard Brainerd intersection because of the 2 lanes of concrete.
So, speaking of the grass, how's punch list issues?
There's still a number of items that are on the punch list.
Some of them, the grass that looks kind of dippy and fixing it in a lot of places and, okay. All right. Any, okay, you answered your question. Is that good?
No, Brainerd Road, Harbor, to Waterford. And possibly
Anything else from you? Okay. Anyone else have any? Okay. Moving on to committee reports and comments by council members. Mrs. Perry, we can start with you.
Finance Committee has been talking for some months about a new accounting system to help us manage our accounts. And we want to upgrade our existing accounting system and to a, it's called SSI.
SSI VIP.
I have no idea what SSI stands for. Is anybody?
Are we talking about software?
About software, we're going to come to you next week for a motion to approve the purchase of software for the finance department. It's going to cost about $52,000, but we haven't, we'll only be able to, we'll only have to pay 10% right now. And if we do it by the end of this month, we'll be on a schedule to get it transferred within 9 months. And the bid is good till September 1st, right? September 5th. So you'll get a bunch of information, including the study they did, who uses it, how much. Our annual costs won't go up. This is a big one-time expenditure. And Finance did recommend approval, so we're going to put it on the agenda for next week.
What you're going to get reports for?
Dane is the expert in this.
Are the report's going to be, that's...
Are the reports going to be better?
With the information available?
They have much better reports, and a lot of the issues that we're currently having will be resolved.
Which issues?
Primarily, one issue is that we can't start the next month until we close the previous month. So if we're working on bank rec on August 5th, we can't put 5 days worth of August in until that is done and complete. So it holds us up, whereas this one allows you 2 months up.
How old is our current software?
I'm sorry?
How old is our current?
It is, when Matt Stuzinski was here, it's about 11 or 12 years.
The software was designed in the 70s, and this new software is a newer model, it's SQL, and it has more upgraded software.
We bought it through Rita, and they have a whole department for support, which is going away.
Are we
So
going to
we
need
don't
any
even-
hardware?
No.
So,
We don't even get the support anymore.
Administration has done their due diligence in researching what other cities are using.
VIP turns out to be used in more than half of the cities surveyed, and the other remaining half, most of them are very unhappy with what other various programs are. This is the most affordable and probably the most user-friendly software program that our office is used to it and recommends it to.
We're having problems also with what we currently have with the department heads, because it doesn't report the budget and the actual expenses accurately, so when they go in to put a purchase order, it shows that they don't have any money left, which might be a good management trick, but it's not, it's hard. It's hard for them to manage when they're not getting the accurate information in real time. fact, when Chief Wilson tells me today that he just keeps track on a separate piece of paper by hand, I knew that we don't have the best system in place. This ought to last at least 10, 15 years, right?
Oh, I don't think so, Jeff.
So that's Lisa's report. I was going to mention it too.
Just one more thing to add. Our annual support costs are almost exactly. So that's not going.
We'll include a lot of information in the packet for you.
Maybe include that.
This.
Yeah.
And that's the quote.
The garden committee, the garden has been doing okay this year, despite some of the early spring rains and stuff. Every year we have the same problems, or different problems, but same old things. We can't always remedy, like certain bugs and rodents and such.
Are we rat infested?
We've had bunnies.
I've always
Have infested, so we
Varmints.
Squirrels.
as a committee going to be willing to work for the Salute to Orange, Anna. You want volunteer?
I was planning on sending.
I told them you would too, and so we talked about it at the last meeting, and you already have at least 2 volunteers, so I think that is something that the garden people love to do. And it highlights the garden along with the feeling accomplished by having a role to do, passing out prizes or whatever you choose. And that's it.
I know school board issues are not necessarily here, but, my one comment relates to the whole Hunting Valley issue that occurred last month, that Mayor Mulcahy spoke very eloquently and appropriately
Sleazy, that's eloquent.
about that, but I just don't know what our role ever would be as it relates to what can happen to, how other communities that in our school district can possibly affect our village, obviously. Very concerning that it was defeated, but the question is, I don't know how we get involved, what we can do that can prevent something like this
I
happening.
have a short answer now, but we are meeting, we're going to have a working group soon, the mayors, and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this going forward.
Juanita's coming on the 22nd.
Just coming on the 22nd, but specifically the residents, I think it's really important, especially if you know people in Hunting Valley. This was not done, I know, somebody in Hunting Valley said to me, this was not done in my name, I support the schools. So I'm hopeful that there are residents in Hunting Valley that are not proud of what was done.
What's the mayor's opinion?
I was told that the mayor wasn't in support, but didn't stop it. This was not done through their council didn't vote, their council didn't take action.
Right.
But their elected finance director did lead this charge, and
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
and then he called me and said, I saw that you got involved, and I wanted to tell you how this wasn't going to hurt Orange Village. I go, okay, explain to me how this isn't going to hurt Orange Village. He said, it's not going to hurt Orange, it's only going to hurt Orange schools. Oh, God. Then he said to me, this wasn't going to hurt, he says, I must have said something like, this was horrible, you were evil, how could you do this, and this will affect everybody, and he goes, well, no, we're not going to keep the money, the residents weren't going to keep the money, we're going to use it for infrastructure in Hunting Valley. Like, well, all of us have to support our own infrastructure too, we're not going to do that out of the school taxes. Then, he said to me, schools aren't going to need the money because they're going to get revenue from Pinecrest. Oh. And then maybe you read my quote, because this is what I said to him. I said, we did not work on Pinecrest for all these years to give the wealthy taxpayers of Hunting Valley a break off of their school taxes. So they're totally out to lunch. They're just nuts about this. And
Who was it that was saying this?
his name is Brian Coughlin. He's the
Brian Coughlin?
Yes. And the other person that was quoted in the article as being part of this was the person who hosted Donald Trump last week. So,
Which is.
Well, I also saw that, a kind ear from Dolan.
we all, Mayor Renda, myself, Mayor Bain, we all called Matt Dolan because he's a very bright guy. How he justified this he never called any of us back. And I'm not done, because I want to hear. I want to talk to him directly. It was insane that he did this. We don't know what to do yet, but there is a person running for school board who lives in Hunting Valley for the first time since I've been mayor, that there's somebody from Hunting Valley. I think that's great. I hope that person...
Happy to be on any committee that you form, so.
Well, we are going to get together to talk about it, and I think right now what we have to do is get as many people as you know in Hunting Valley, if you know anyone, and if they're not in favor of this, we need them to shame their leaders. We can't, but their residents can. It was awful what they did.
The garage sale booth at the, the garden.
Sale.
The mini garage sale.
For sale.
Veterans, are we doing that again?
Honoring you, Herb. Mr. Bilski?
First off, thank you to our mayor, Mayor Bain, and the other mayors for stepping up and helping the schools to prevail in this one. In case you did not know, last month I passed around that article in the Chagrin Valley Times about Moreland Hills and their tobacco, age 21 and over. That was part of this budget bill, so we don't have to.
It's been raised in the state of Ohio for buying tobacco.
So in case you didn't see that, how these things get slipped into budget bills still kind of amazes me. I wanted to find out if we have any updates from Beechwood.
Oh, I wanted to know that too.
We don't have an update from Beechwood. They're behind us in terms of it's going on their agenda. 2 weeks, or a week and a half.
So possibly for September, we might.
Now, if you've
Okay.
driven by there lately, you see that they put a fence up. And we went out there to stop them, because they didn't have a permit. And they claimed they were allowed to do that because they had an approval for it. So we went back through the records, and they had indeed come to planning and zoning in 2014 with a chain link fence, and walked out with our approval to do a white vinyl fence. So they did put up what we had approved, and what we found in doing that is that our approvals don't time out. So I have asked Steve to write an ordinance that will give approval for planning and zoning a finite life, that if you don't do it within that time frame, it's not still approved. So
That ordinance has been drafted. It also picks up architectural board approval. Sometimes architectural board will approve something, the council, or planning and zoning, there's no zoning issue. They're changing the exterior face of the house. Same situation, after a year, it would expire, or whatever time.
Wouldn't that coincide with the permit sunset?
This is.
They didn't get a permit.
The answer is yes, their permit would have expired, but they would be allowed to get a new permit on an old approval. So you need to have the sunset on both the ADR and the planning and zoning approval, and also the building permit.
Okay, so they went ahead on that approval, but they didn't do it where we approved it. I think we approved for it to be 17 feet off the right-of-way, and they put it 10 feet off the right-of-way. And I went and looked at it today with the chief, and it's up, it does what we wanted it to do. They've already landscaped. Have you seen? They put landscaping all through it. So Bob McLaughlin's on vacation this week, so I don't know what we're going to do. I don't want to have him tear it out. I'm glad it's there, but I don't know yet.
And it would be possible for them to get a late permit, building permit, and they pay double the fee, and they're done.
But part of, as I recall, when that took place, when that came before Planning Commission, not only was it the fence, but also the landscaping that went with that fence was approved. Is that landscaping,
I have no idea.
we have to,
He wrote them.
that needs to be.
The building permit is to establish that they're going to build what they said they were going to do, and then you inspect afterwards to see that they actually built what they said they were going to do. So that wasn't done.
We didn't know they were doing it, just, I don't know.
So they never pulled the permit on it at all. They just did it.
Oh, that's right, they didn't.
So they just executed with,
Did it their way.
okay. So we could
That leaves us up in the air?
I don't know yet.
tear it down.
I mean, I don't know yet, because I haven't talked to Bob. I was gone last week, and he's gone this week. All I know is the meeting. So I don't know. But he sent them a letter, but it's still up and it looks decent.
The idea was to screen what's going on behind it.
I'm also
Is it
sort of.
in just Orange, or is it in
Just in
Orange?
Orange.
Just
Western
It's just
side
on the
of the
and just part of
property.
it.
It doesn't cover the front of the property, doesn't cover the back.
But they did repave the,
Part of the approval was all, was not only just that line along Orange Place, but the south property line and fully around the building, but
south property line, no, their south property line now has a lot of tall, mature pine trees that are a good screening.
there still should be a fence there too. Should be something more.
Drive by there and we'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
But Bob's going to have to pull out what was approved and we'll have to look at it. But that's why I'm also waiting to see what Beechwood is going to do.
I've been away too, so I wouldn't have seen it.
I haven't seen it.
I've been away too, so I wouldn't have seen it at all.
Have a field party, a little field trip.
Thank you for providing the update on the trails on the website. I've been directing a lot of residents to look there, so I'm hoping once we have the schedule, we can continue to update that, but that was very helpful. And it had just been that letter from like last September until then, so that was good, right front and center there. A number of residents have asked me about the condition of the tree lawns on Brainerd between Emory and Miles. There's all sorts of tall grass in many of those areas there. And I'm assuming, even though there's a recreational trail, the homeowner is still responsible for servicing that?
They are.
So is that something that somebody has to file a complaint to the building department, or?
We have somebody goes around, checks on that, but we haven't been enforcing the tree lawn grass cutting yet.
And I've driven by there a couple times after they mentioned it to me, in that stretch from on Brainerd between Emory and Miles. It's in a lot of areas are in bad condition there, very high grass and weeds.
Wooded areas as well, too, that don't have a home on it, which will need to be addressed.
Now they can do that?
They can do that now.
Okay. And Mazel Tov to the mayor on the birth of her 5th grandchild.
That's cute.
All I have.
Mr. Klein?
Well, I do have a report from our last planning commission meeting, which was on July 16th, was our last meeting. We did not meet last night. There was not an agenda. Everything has been pushed forward for the next meeting's agenda.
Agenda we have on the.
We're gonna be there for the duration on the 20th. The usual suspects, we had some new houses in Lakes of Orange development. We approved the plans for BJ's Restaurant, so they're going to be moving forward with that construction momentarily.
Brian Mader, did BJ's site plan get final engineering approval? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, last fund letter from you, I saw it was not approved.
What was the date of the letter?
It was the day of the last meeting. All right, I can pull that, but we approved it, but it was subject to your approval.
Yeah, it was subject to engineers, coordination with engineers approval. But they're,
Been resubmitted and approved already.
I haven't seen that letter yet.
well, good. That means that they can go forward. I know there's some other big doings for a number of projects that are on the agenda for the 20th.
We have a whole lot.
Yeah, and there's a lot to do. So that was it from planning. A couple of other things I just wanted to maybe talk about. I had a number of calls from residents in Orangewood regarding the trails, the schedule of development of trails. They saw surveyors out on the street.
You
and
weren't here last month, so you missed that conversation. We are pricing.
Oh, I know. I got the details, and I passed it along to those people who called, basically, that before we can do anything, we have to have a survey that tells us what we're going to be able to do, and we can develop a cost structure for it. It'll be some time before we have that. We have to also look at the funds that are available that may be remaining from the trail project before that can be considered, and it'll probably be a year, and there'll be an opportunity for community input when the time arises.
That we would write them specifically when we were going to talk about Orangewood and have
That
a,
we would have a town hall kind of meeting.
Yeah. I would like to add, I did send a letter into the governor's office in regards to this little end run by Hunting Valley, and made my case, whether it had any effect on it in part, but at least it was another voice from the community leadership. And we should all, when we do get a chance, to your point, Alan, when we do have a chance to weigh in on something, we should, albeit we don't have an opportunity to get together as a council, but perhaps in the interest of our community, need to act as quickly as we can, particularly when things are getting to action at the state legislature. Once we get to that point, we should.
we're getting together to talk about it.
The last thing I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of interesting, I'm not sure who to talk to in the village about this. Last weekend, I was in Washington, D.C. for some meetings. I serve as the chair for the American Institute of Architects Center for Leadership, and I met a gentleman who has a company called Vendor Registry, which seemed to me to be a very intriguing idea. And basically what it does is it manages and solicits bids for goods and services that are procured by cities. And you get sort of a national, if you will, opportunity to put your bids out and for whatever products or services that you might be soliciting for, and then you have a much longer list of potential candidates, vendors who might fulfill those. So sometimes when we have bids that only get one bidder on them, we may have an opportunity to do more than that. It comes at no cost to cities. It's called vendorregistry.com. And I'm not sure who to, pass the information along to on that one, because I thought.
Shopper.
Pardon? Anna's the shopper? So I'll pass that connection along to you, and you can take a look at it. I looked at it, it seemed very interesting, and it created an opportunity, and it also gives you a much broader brushstroke relative to looking at things that you solicit pricing for. And congratulations on Grandma 5, and what a wonderful experience that is. And I'm sorry I missed the meetings in last month, but the trip to Europe was really cool. I really enjoyed that with my daughter.
Moose.
So, and that's all I got to say about that.
Yes, forever and ever and ever, I discussed the red house on my street here and pulled teeth until it was eventually demolished. Happily, the land, the actual vacant land was sold, and there's a beautiful looking new house going up, which must have come before planning and zoning, I imagine. It looks really nice, and I understand the new owners are a young couple from Chicago with children, so that's a plus. Yeah, so. I don't know. They're digging the basement foundations right now. And then, sadly, we're all sort of drenched with it. A few months ago, it was the massacre at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, and now I'm overwhelmed with more murders at El Paso and at Dayton. And I heard that our governor, with a lot of backlash, has got all sorts of plans going in the works to try and help at least Ohio, except that they're skirting around assault weapons. And I don't know whether we can do anything about this as a council, whether we can write a resolution, whether we can advise. This is the latest atrocities. This is more of the same, and I don't know when it's going to stop. But coming from a country where there are no guns, it's still very difficult for me to swallow this and just blow it off till the next time. So I don't know if we can do anything, or whether I will be a voice on this council and say I absolutely am opposed to the sale of all assault weapons, and even if they're looking at background checks for mental illness and so on and so forth. If you don't have the weapon in the hand that can go in and ricochet and kill 9 people in about a few seconds, then I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. I think he needs to hear, because, people's voices do count. They always have. They have. Over my career in this community, the public's voices help. So I'm very sad about this. It's been very draining and very exhausting. And, I'm respectful of the Second Amendment, but it's just more and more of the same, and we've got to try and do something. Thank you.
Next week, there will be legislation to add interest charges to, again, we did this for Hidden Valley not too long ago, but we have a certain area of the village that has tap-in fees, and somebody came in to tap in, and Dana discovered that we didn't have authorization to charge the interest, and so there will be legislation allowing for that and ratifying any interest that was charged before it passed. So that will be before everybody. Next Tuesday night, if anybody is interested in hearing what Pepper Pike is proposing for the Beach Brook property, there is a public hearing in Pepper Pike next Tuesday, the 13th at 7:30. And that's all.
Is that in?
Are you sure?
No, but I think that's all I can think of. Yeah.
All right. I don't think I really have any comments tonight, so... Okay,
Motion to adjourn. Second?
All in favor?
yeah. All in favor, say yes.
Aye.
Aye.
The end.
So you show you of all people will